see, it might be my fault for having a messed up environment. So it's running Windows 7, and I was like, well, that's your problem. But it's a program can't start because libparrot.dll is missing from your computer. And I was like, oh, great, I know what this bug is. Did you make install? That's one of the key steps. Did you make install? Yes, I made install. Also added a bunch of other things. Ultimately, 10 minutes later, he's still getting the error. Great, 20 minutes to release. And I'm sitting there going, okay, let's make a new tarball and test it. So I wasn't very happy. Finally, at 11:59, I said, release hold at T-1. We're not going to make the release. Rapidly created a tarball to fix the problem. And I sent it to Jonathan Worthington, and the guy who reported the bug, because they're the only Windows developers I knew who were available at the time. And say, can you please test this tarball really, really quick? And I don't even need you to run it or run the test. Just make sure this file is in the right place, and I think we're good to go with that. This guy disappeared on me. So he came in, he gives me a bug report at 30 minutes prior to the release, and then he walks off. And it's like, well, okay. So that was all up to Jonathan. So at 12:02, we're 2 minutes late. We're in the release hold. People are coming into the channel. Are we there yet? No, we're not there yet. I'm working on a Windows bug. It's worth fixing. There's a lot of Windows users, so why don't we be able to do it? Sushi had already tweeted that it was out, that it was released. And this is the tweet. It's pretty nice. Naked camel with butterfly. Some good morphing there. Rakudo Star released, and she gave the download URL where it was already at. So people would go like, oh great, okay, I hope it doesn't have a bug. At 12:07, Carl was like waiting, and I'm holding on a downloaded build. Now at this time, I'm furiously chatting with Jonathan on channel, saying, can you please build this? He's at work. He's got a day job. I don't know why people have day jobs. That's just you gotta know what's important. Somebody else said, aha, here's the URL for the download. Great, now everybody knows where it's at. Careful, we're going to have a replacement tarball in a few minutes. Carl says, I'll hold for a while. Great. So behind the scenes, this is the message I sent to Jonathan. 10 years of Perl development's waiting on you. But no pressure. So that's about 16 minutes afterwards. Everybody's still sitting there waiting. They know, okay, something's going to come out. I said, I'm estimating 4 minutes till we do, but it could be as much as 14. Somebody says, Perl 6 is delayed again. Story of my life. Meanwhile, the tweet that went out was being retweeted. So everybody's already talking, Perl 6 is out, right? Finally, a Tucking video comes in and says, so is it officially released? No, it's not officially released yet. We're on magical Patrick time units now. Finally, 22 minutes late, managed to put out the release tweet, and everything was going. Jonathan got back to me, the file was in the right place. I said, we're going with that. So it was really good, and the tweet was delivered. So I was really happy. So we were only 22 minutes late. It's not too bad. Although some people would say we're about 5 years late, 10 years late, I was counting 22. So the reaction to the release has generally been very positive, much more positive than some of us expected. Especially in the years leading up to this, there have been a lot of negative postings about Perl 6. Some deserved, some not so deserved. And so overall, the reaction is generally very positive. Just great, there's a release out, fantastic, it even works, that's even better. Lots of tweets and retweets. So far, there have been over 2,200 downloads of the tarball from GitHub. About 1,800 of those occurred in the first 24 hours. For a while, we were the #1 project on GitHub in terms of project linking. And there have been 1,100 downloads of the Windows installer that Jonathan put together, which has been great. We've had a lot of new visitors to the Perl 6 channel. So far, we haven't had that many bug reports. And so either people are downloading it and not actually getting it to build, or finding a bug report, but I don't think that's it. I think it's just people haven't found the bugs yet, so they're not trying hard enough. And we're seeing some new code modules get put together. A lot of people are saying, hey, here's this neat new tool, I want to write some modules, and modules are being written, which has been very, very helpful. Some of the negative reactions, there's one really annoying poster, who I won't name, but on Reddit, accused us of missing the release date, posted this an hour before the release, and said, it's July 29th, where's the release? And it's like, you're an hour early, dude. That post didn't get very high. One of the things that I'm very pleased about is that the vaporware meme seems to be going away. For a long time, people have been saying Perl 6 is vaporware. And the most common comparison is with what? Duke Nukem, right? So it's Duke Nukem Perl 6. Hey, that's a great idea for a release name. Perl 6, the Duke Nukem edition. But you don't see that very much anymore. That label is quickly going away. I'm very, very happy to see that label going away. The most common reaction is that the size and speed of Rakudo compared to Perl 5 is not a very flattering comparison for Rakudo. And yeah, we knew that already. But there are a lot of people who are discovering this and gleefully telling it to the world, about how awful this is. There's absolutely no way that we'll get a 3,000% speed up in order to get there. Most of the measurements, at least in my opinion, that the people are making make some very flawed assumptions or are busy trying to put the worst spin on it possible. And that's fine, there can be people that do it, but don't treat any numbers that you see or things that you see once they come from me as being correct. And the other thing that we see as far as feedback is a lot of people are expecting there to be more in the way of documentation, and there's not. And we know that. That's part of the reason why we released it, so we can get more documentation. Is my network not working? I lost my network connection. Yes, what I did. Oh, there it is. Just took a second. Network is slow. So one of the tweets that came up was this one, which is German, which I absolutely cannot read. But basically, the tweet was, it won't work, but we used to say that about Perl 6 too. I like that tweet. That's like, okay, well, a lot of people said Perl 6 will never work. Guess what? It works. So I was happy about that one. Another one that we saw earlier in the week, this one's going to take another second to download, I'm sure. Somebody wrote, wow, Rakudo works better than I expected. I like that kind of feedback. That's good feedback. Perl 6 for the win. As I mentioned earlier, we've seen a lot of increased activity. A lot of people have looked at it and are coming in and asking questions, and that's what we want. For the Rakudo team, and indeed many people in Perl 6, a question that comes in is often a bug report. So just the fact that somebody had to ask the question means that we haven't adequately put information out there. So generally, what this graph is showing is the number of active people for any given 24-hour period in the Perl 6 channel. And typically, we would have somewhere between 40 and, say, 70 people, sometimes as much as 80. The release date was here, and on that day, we apparently had over 150 people come in. And since then, we've been having over 100 active people in the channel, or people who have talked at least once in the channel. So we have a lot of people who come in, they'll ask a couple of questions, they go away. We've got a bunch of new contributors now, which is one of the things that we wanted to do. There have been people who have put together documentation, and they're starting to write some good documentation. A number of different people writing libraries, so we're very happy with that. A lot of increased activity as a result. So what does the future hold for Rakudo Star? Well, certainly we're working on speed and memory improvements. That's probably our primary goal for the next couple of compiler and Star releases, is to do that. We have 4 different things that we know of that we can do to get improvements in the speed that takes place. One of the largest ones is that Jonathan is working on redesigning the object meta model, the implementation of that. Part of what makes Rakudo so slow is that objects in our method are slow and everything is object-oriented for us. And there are some key improvements that we can do there to make that a lot faster. We need to do a refactor and rewrite of some of the core methods. So let me give an example here of the kind of refactoring that we did. At the end of June, there was a Reddit post where somebody said, hey, I tried this program, and I did it in Perl 5 and it runs in like 0.3 of a second, and I did it in Python and it runs in half a second, and I did it in Rakudo and it takes 22 seconds to run this same bit of code. And I looked at it and I said, oh my gosh, 22 seconds. And they were using the June release for that, and I was like, well, we've done a few changes since that release. I saw this in July. And I said, maybe it's faster. And so I went and ran it on the current trunk to see how it would do it. It took 77 seconds. It went 3 times slower from June to where we were in July. And I said, that's not good. We don't want to be going that slow. So I posted it to the channel and I said, here's an example program. And in the June release, it took 22 seconds on my system. Right now, it's taking us 77 seconds. What's going on? And we went through and we looked at it, and it was a pathological case that was being followed for dealing with rational arithmetic. And that was turning out to be very, very slow. And with a quick fix, we were able to get that back down to 20 seconds. So we were back to the other one. And then with a slightly more advanced fix that we couldn't adopt yet, we got it down to 4. So just one little line of code being wrong with the Rakudo code base made a difference between 22 seconds and 4 seconds for this particular program. There's a lot of little things like that in there. So what we need is more time to be factoring those code, and we need more programs in order to find the slow pieces, to find those pathological cases. So just some refactoring and rewriting, we should get quite a bit of speed improvement. Part of also what is hurting us in terms of performance is just the startup time. Right now, when you start the Rakudo compiler, what it has to do is it has to do a whole bunch of setup stuff to set up some data structures and set up the base classes that you would need to make use of the Perl 6 features. And that takes a long time. Ultimately, we expect to be able to serialize that so that it's binary, so that when you start the compiler or the interpreter, all of those structures are already in place in memory. They don't have to be dynamically created at the beginning of runtime. But right now, we don't have that serialization in place to be able to do that. And so we actually have to build all the classes before we get started to be able to do that. And the other thing we're doing is improving profiling tools and benchmarks. So there's a lot of different places where we know that Rakudo is slow and we know how we're going to speed it up. And we expect to do that. And some other code refactors. The other things that are Rakudo Star's future is to improve module management. Right now, Rakudo Star just is the compiler bundled with quite a few modules pre-installed. And there wasn't a lot of rhyme or reason even in choosing which modules to include. It was basically which ones kind of work. And enough to get a demonstration we can do it. But we expect to have a module installer of some sort available, much along the lines of what CPAN- does. And I'll talk more about CPAN in a little bit. So we're going to be improving module management. We'll be adding more features and modules. Certainly the 2 that are the most requested that I've seen that people say they'd like to be able to use and aren't available yet are being able to do non-blocking I/O, especially non-blocking sockets, or binary file and string manipulation. Those are 2 key pieces that we're missing. But we've already got people working on adding those in. We can always use more people to help with those. Of course, documentation and documentation tools are going to be the other ones, and better handling of our exceptions. So those are the key features in the future. The other thing that's going to be happening over the next, I'd say 3 months to a year, is that the Rakudo team thinks we need to target other platforms beyond Parrot. So we'll, of course, continue to do Parrot, and Parrot we consider to be our core platform at the moment. But we also think that for the longevity of Rakudo and to maximize the number of people who will be using Perl 6, we want to have .NET, JVM, and some other implementations as well. We already have plans to get started on this over the next couple of months and to see about doing it. The early steps in this process will be to port NQP, which stands for Not Quite Perl. NQP is a small mini language that we use to bootstrap the Perl 6 compiler, the Rakudo compiler. And it's explicitly been designed to be portable to these other ones. So if we have success at getting NQP onto these other platforms, then we expect Rakudo won't be far behind. And porting like that is not nearly as hard as it might sound at first. So for the compiler code base, this is the way that the source code breaks down. For the Rakudo compiler, of the 26,000 lines that are there, about over half of those lines are written in Perl 6, either as NQP code, which is Perl 6 syntax,